Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Riverson, your financial wingwoman.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Breaking Financial Chains. I'm so happy that you're here. Now, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about planning for retirement. Not the dry and crusty and distant, scary future that you might be considering or that you've been told is the way forward. Sometimes I try and have this conversation with clients and they can't think about next week, let alone 20, 30 years in the future. This is about crafting a future that you're excited for, because who knows what's around the corner, right? And if we are sassy and careful and strategic a little bit with ourselves and with our money, there's absolutely no reason that we can't have these things building in the background without being too scared about it. It's super easy to put these things to one side and leave them without considering what the impact of that might be, but also by leaving them because we just don't know, we just don't understand, because we think that it should be something that is dealt with at a later date by someone that's got their shit together more than we might feel that we have right now. So this episode is your reminder that it is absolutely never too early to start thinking about it. It's also never too late, but the earlier we start, the better. One of my favourite Chinese proverbs is something along the lines of, I can never get the exact wording of it right, but basically, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time to plant a tree is right now. So this is your permission slip to start giving this some consideration if you haven't thought about it for some time. It's also I need to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not giving any advice on pensions or what products that you should be using. You absolutely should have a independent financial advisor that can help you with this. But this is something to get you thinking about the habits that are involved in thinking about retirement, and that this doesn't need to be something that we put off doing or we're scared of doing. It's something that every single person needs to think about. So the general themes here are long-term vision, lifestyle design, and future self-empowerment, as I talk about in many of my episodes. But quite often though, retirement planning does feel dull, or it's avoided, or it's something that we will do next week or next month or next year, or once I get the house renovations out of the way, or once we replace the car because that's super important to get that upgraded, or whatever it might be. With the best will in the world, it's so easy to come up with excuses and reasons why we don't put these things in place, in the same way as we might not have an up-to-date will in place, or we don't have a lasting power of attorney in place. All that we're doing by avoiding dealing with these things and not having them in place is removing agency for ourselves. It is something that we then lose access to later, and it's something that's completely avoidable. So if we're worried about it, we need to understand some more about it, we need to read up about it, but we need to take those steps now. But when you're deep in life and bills and kids and clients, retirement feels like it's a million miles away. So we need to start making small steps now. Many women ignore it because it feels overwhelming, it feels boring, or maybe we're going to rely on someone else to take care of the pension for us, so it's not something that we need to pay any attention to. Maybe it's not for people like us. But this isn't ultimately about pensions. This is about possibility. This is about future self and our opportunities that we're going to have later in life. But the problem that we have in the way that we're taught about to think about retirement is that it's a very outdated narrative. The whole, you work hard all your life, and then when you get to 65 or 67 or whatever the retirement age might be, by the time we get there, you then stop. You get to put your feet up and watch daytime TV, or you get to potter in the garden for the rest of your life, which can become something that we dread. It becomes fear-based. It becomes about the numbers only, often from male-centric advice. So there's no vision, there's no emotion. It just becomes about the transactions and the spreadsheets, and we're not about that. And if you layer that as well with women being a lot more likely to pause their careers, to be in caregiving positions such as having children or caring for older relatives, we earn less. We can earn less generally alongside with not taking any of those gaps. But over time, if we're not earning on a par with our male counterparts, that then affects our ability to save and prepare and plan for future retirement. If you add all of those things that we've got going against us, those disadvantages, we're still expected to figure it out and know what we need to do. Well, we don't. We're not born with this advice. This is something that we need to learn for ourselves. And sometimes because it's money, because it's taboo, we don't feel that we can ask, or we don't know who we can ask to get this information. So we're going to put it all out there in the open today, and I'm going to start giving you some things to think about to help you making the next steps. So retirement planning is actually about personal power. And you might notice a theme, and I talk about this a lot in my episodes. It's about agency, it's about sovereignty, it's about having a choice in the future for ourselves as women. Retirement does not automatically mean stop working. It's about choices. It's about having the opportunities that we don't know what we're going to want yet. All we can attempt to do right now is close as few doors as possible to leave ourselves with as many options when we get a little bit further down the line. The goal is freedom, not just a figure or a number that we're wanting to work towards. And you get to create a life that feels good before and after retirement. We don't draw a line in the sand and then stop being ourselves at that point. It is just about making sure that when we get to a point where we do maybe want to take our foot off the gas, or maybe not be going at a certain pace, that we can, because we've put these plans and these steps in place. And going back to the episode that I recorded for the end of 2025, this is about vision. This is about visualizing. This is about thinking about our North Star, not about the numbers specifically. The numbers are important. The numbers make a part of that plan and that vision, but we need the vision first. So we're going to ask ourselves some questions that I'm going to work through with you, and we're going to see where that takes you. If you haven't done the visualizing exercises around the North Star, maybe go back and give that episode a listen, either now or when you finish this. But the general theme is the same. Essentially, the first question, what do I want my life to look like at 60, 70 and 80 years of age? So we're not going to consider any restrictions that we might have. We're not going to think about any health issues we might have or money worries. If there were no money worries or health issues, what would I want that to look like? What do I see future me doing? And those sorts of things might be around, where am I waking up? Who's around me? How do I spend my days? And remember, it's about the emotion. It's about the feeling. So it's not just about, I want to be able to hear, I want to be in a certain place, or I want to be with a certain person. We're going to layer that up. I want to be able to hear the sea. I want to be able to hear running water. We're living near a stream or a lake, or I want to hear birds or wildlife or whatever it might be. You want to be with a certain person. What do you want to be doing in that time? Do you want to still be working? Do you want to be volunteering? Do you want to be travelling? Do you want to be resting? Do you actually want to sit with your feet up and watch daytime TV? Perfect. That's okay, because it's your vision. This is what you want to do. Do you want to build something new? What is it that you want to be doing? And add the emotions. What can you see? What can you hear? How does it feel? And then we reverse engineer the money side of that. So if we have an intention, we can then figure out how we're going to get there. Because remember, our brain rewires when we think about these things and we visualize these things and we let our imagination run away with itself, and it starts to look for ways and possibilities in which we can actually achieve it, rather than trying to be logical and tell ourselves it's just not possible. Because anything is possible, and we just don't know what's going to happen between now and then that might take us closer to that goal without even meaning to. And the choices that we might make now could have impact that we're not going to recognise or even appreciate until another 10 or 15 or 20 years down the line. So if we think about how we want to feel now, it's the small micro changes that are going to help move the needle and move us closer to that, than if we just do nothing at all and carry on with our day-to-day and our default lifestyle and spending. So we're going to layer the emotions, we're going to reverse engineer the money, and then we're going to layer in the strategy. Then we're going to have to do some of the doing. And this might mean picking up the phone, this might mean sending some emails, but one of the first things we're going to need to do is review your pensions, even if it's scary. We're going to set a time, or you're just going to get up right now and you're going to go and find your logins, or you're going to go and find that piece of paper with that information on. We're not going to give our brain an opportunity or a chance to step in and say, oh no, too scary, let's avoid that because the fridge is filthy. So this is one of my favourite tactics. If I'm trying to avoid doing something, my house all of a sudden requires scrubbing from ceiling to floor. My freezer needs defrosting, the ironing needs doing, haven't checked that washing machine filter in a while. I start to find busyness elsewhere. We're not going to do that. We're going to take the steps towards the scary thing that we're avoiding doing. Because what we are actually then usually end up finding is that it wasn't that scary in the first place. It might be that you don't have a pension, or you don't know how to access it, or you've got no idea what the name of your provider is. So we're going to start taking steps then to figure out what that is. If you haven't got one, we can think about getting one. If we don't know where it is, we can start looking for clues. I had a similar issue a few years ago where I moved houses a few times over a few years, and I couldn't remember the names of pension providers because they get bought out, they merge with other providers, so things and institutions change. So it's important that we're keeping up to date with this sort of thing. Otherwise we're going to be missing out. We're going to be losing on things that we have put in place that haven't travelled with us. So we want to be able to almost scoop up the net with all of the bits and pieces that we've put in place already, if we're not already 100%. We also want to think about your business or your career, dependent upon how you have that set up. So is that something that is going to support future you, or is that something that's going to drain her instead? Is it something you're going to continue to plough into, or is now the ideal time to be thinking about doing something a little bit differently? Maybe applying for that promotion, maybe making a sideward step into a different job that's perhaps more aligned with your values. Maybe it means thinking about making changes within your business to work with clients that are more aligned or have similar values to yourself. When we start thinking about longer term us, we sometimes think about the version of us that is more of a grown-up, when actually we're already that grown-up now, and we can start to make those choices and make those decisions now, because future you includes future you tomorrow, includes future you next week, next year, and many, many years into the future. We can start to act like that and be that person if we're not already, as soon as we choose to, whenever we want to. But to make those choices, we need to know the direction that we're going in. Other things to consider for retirement, thinking about pensions, thinking about our jobs. So those are our main sources of income that we have right now. But we would also want to think about other potential sources of income, or reviewing those if you already have them. So things such as property income or rental income that we have coming in. Thinking about sources of passive income. So that might come from investing, or it might come from a side business or something that you're working on. Looking at ISAs, actual investments and investing platforms. Inheritance planning, where might that come from, and where your wealth, your estate is going to go when you get to that point in your life. So looping back to the wills and the lasting power of attorney I mentioned earlier on in this episode. And then we're going to need to seek some advice. Again, that's not going to come from me, but we're going to need to find somebody that you're comfortable talking about these things with. We have to be completely honest. And to do that, we need to feel safe. So that person, again, knowing what your values are, will help you to find someone that's more aligned with your values, that you listen to or you read up on, and you can relate to them instantly because of the important things that you're looking at, that you're wanting them to have, whether that's in terms of traits or the language that they use or the way that they present themselves. We're human beings at the end of the day. It's important that you choose someone that you can be comfortable with And we can only use so many points to start with to make that decision. But then you can start asking questions. You can arrange an introductory appointment. You can start to think about the sort of people that you would feel comfortable talking to. And the advice that you seek needs to align with your goals as well, not just around generic targets or what they're going to tell you should be aiming for. You don't have to take that at face value. How does it make you feel when you're having those conversations? Talk to some of your trusted friends and ask them for advice on how they would do it until you find a way forward that is aligned and fits with how it feels right to you. Some of the common mistakes that I see that women make around retirement are things like assuming a partner's pension will cover them. If you've not already had that honest conversation with your other half or your husband or your wife, you don't know that. And to assume that that's going to be okay and is going to sustain you in later years is the same as assuming it's okay, I'll just keep buying a lottery ticket because by then surely I will have won something. That's just not the way that these things work. It's something that we need to take control of and we need to have visibility of to make those decisions. Other common mistakes I see is not understanding the impact or understanding how breaks in employment affect contributions. So whether that's care roles, maternity roles, what happens when you're not earning and you have either nothing or a lot less going into a pension. What happens when your annual salary is at a certain level and that is set and dictated by someone else. So for example, if you're relying on a workplace pension, not having a clear understanding of how those contributions work. And if we're taking big gaps in our career, what we're missing out on by not having those payments then going into a pension. The typical procrastinating, leaving it for later, as with the gaps in employment and pension contributions from our businesses, if we're self-employed, we're missing out on that magic compound growth magic, which is the secret sauce when it comes to pensions, because we can put money into savings and we absolutely should be putting money into savings and investing, but the real magic happens a lot longer down the line. So it's very easy to look at a pension platform or a product that you're paying money into and just seeing a small incremental amount of growth, but it's that compounding that happens way down the line where the interest might grow steadily and then all of a sudden it goes up in a much steeper curve. But that happens years down the line, years and years. So starting smaller and earlier is by far the best way to do it. But that can be something you're having conversations with your children about, instead of beating yourself up for the fact that you may not have done that at this stage. It's something that we can still work towards now, but we could be putting 10, 20, 50 pounds a month into savings or a pension for our children as well, and encouraging them to do the same. Because if they start doing that at age 18, it's entirely feasible and possible to be sitting on £1 million pension pot by the time that they retire at 65, 67 or even earlier, if that's what they do. At the other end of the scale, we've got the common belief that it's too late to do anything meaningful when it comes to pension planning, or we get to 40, 45, 50 and think, well, there's just no point, because nothing I do now is going to make a dent, because I'm going to completely miss out on that compounding, so we do nothing. Please do not do nothing. Please do something. So quick wins. So these are the things you're going to write down on a notepad, a piece of paper that you're going to go away and do straight away, and you're going to feed back to me how that went for you. First of all, you're going to log into your pension portal, or find if you have one. So you might have a pension, you might have information about it, but have you actually tried to access it and have visibility of the funds that you have available, and looking at the growth, the rate of growth that you have on there? It's entirely possible to move the pension if it's not performing the way you want it to perform, and this is where specific, bespoke, independent financial advice will help you to make those decisions and understand the information that you're looking at on a statement or on a screen. But having access to it online gives you more power and more information, and even if we're scared, when we know, we can make decisions. We can then stop burying our head in the sand, and we can start to make choices for future us, and she's going to thank you, I promise you. You can also use the government state pension forecast tool. So if you're in employment, if you're running a business and you're paying national insurance at any level, then you will be entitled to some form of state pension. The contributions that you put into that state pension pot will determine the amount that you get once you reach state retirement age. So if you've had gaps in your employment, or you perhaps went and did a master's or a PhD before you went into employment, or you started employment later, it might be that your pot isn't where you want it to be, and you can take steps to change that. So there is a mechanism where you can pay voluntary pension contributions to top that pot up. Again, I'm not suggesting that that is the right thing for everybody to do. Taking financial advice is going to be the best way to figure out what needs to happen for you. But if you understand if you have any gaps, it will also give you a state pension forecast of if things stay as they are, this is how much you will be able to draw when you reach retirement age. And it will also tell you how many years you have to contribute. So you can work out how many years you're planning to work if you can top up those contributions by the time you get to that age. All of this is fuel. It is information. All of this then gives you what you need to make the next step. Take the next step and make the next choice. This is not intended to be scary or overwhelm you. This is about giving you power to make different choices. Other things that you can do: start a future me fund. Even if it's small, doesn't matter how small, start doing that. Start doing that today. Moving it to one side, putting it in a savings pot, even if it's just £20 or £50 a month. Something that you know is just for you, that you're putting to one side, and you can decide where that goes later. Another really, really valuable thing is to set a 30-minute future money date each month. Whether that's just to sit and dream, whether that's to practically look at your spending and your intentional spending that you want in the future. It's a month to learn, to dream, or to plan, whatever it is that's the most important to you. Starting to set time aside to intentionally work on this is reminding you that this is important. This is just as important as all of those responsibilities that you have for other people, towards the house and the kids and your other half and family and jobs and clients and everything else. If we continually put ourselves at the bottom of that list, we are continually saying no to future us. We're saying no to future you that is waiting for you to pick up the reins, to take positive steps for those plans. We can absolutely do it. We can do it together. So what I want for you to take from this episode today is that retirement isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. And it's something that's hopefully coming to all of us regardless. So we want to be as comfortable and happy with what's waiting for us when we get there. And the only way that we can have that is by making those plans now. And you deserve more than survival in your later years. You deserve absolute sovereignty and choice at every step. A will, a lasting power of attorney, and financial funds for the fantastic life that we're going to continue to live once we get to that stage. So this isn't about fear. This is about freedom. This is absolutely all about freedom. So we're not going to put that off, and we're going to take those steps today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wing woman, and I'll see you next week.